This is why in 1983 I announced the plan to develop the GNU operating system. It wasn't just that I felt like developing an operating system. Of course, I knew any programming project would be fun if I succeeded in doing it, but that's not what it was about. The reason was for freedom, because at the time it was impossible to use a computer and have freedom, because a computer won't run without an operating system, and all the operating systems for the modern computers of the day were proprietary. So there was no way to buy a new computer and run it and have freedom. You always had to install a proprietary operating system, and that meant giving up your freedom. So how could I change that? I didn't think I could change it by organizing a protest movement, because too few people agreed with me. So instead I had the idea that I could change the situation by developing another operating system, and I stood a chance of succeeding at that because operating system development was my field. And then, being the author, I could legally make it free, giving all users freedom, and then everybody would be able to use their computers in freedom with the system I would write. So I decided to invite other people to join in the development to make it free software, to get it done sooner. And I guess I should take that over. I decided to invite others to join in the development to get it finished sooner. I decided to follow the design of Unix so that it would be a portable system capable of running on various different kinds of computers, because I knew that in 5 or 10 years computers would be different. I wanted the system to continue to be capable of running on future computers. And then I decided to make it compatible with Unix so that the many users of Unix would find it easy to switch. And then I gave it the name GNU as a joke, because GNU is a recursive acronym. It stands for GNU's Not Unix. Now this follows a custom among certain programmers in the community which I belonged to, that when you had to write a new program similar to some existing program, a humorous way of giving credit to the older program was you could give your program a name, which was a recursive acronym, saying that your program is not the other one. So I followed that tradition, especially since it gave me the opportunity to use the funniest word in the English language as the name. The reason this word is so full of humor is because according to the dictionary, the G is silent and it's pronounced new. So anytime you want to write the word new, you can spell it G-N-U and you've got a joke. Maybe not a very good joke, but there are lots of them. However, when it's the name of our system, please do not follow the dictionary. If you talk about the new operating system, you'll get people confused. You see, we've been working on it for 25 years now, so it's not new anymore. But it still is GNU. And it will always be GNU, even if some people make the mistake of calling it Linux. But how did that strange era get started? Well, what happened was, in 1990, we had almost all of the system, but one important piece was missing. So the Free Software Foundation hired somebody to write that piece. That piece is called the kernel. It's the program that allocates the computer's resources to the other programs that you run. Well, our kernel project took a long time. It sort of runs, but it doesn't work very well, so we don't use it. And someone else wrote a kernel in 1991, and he released it under the name Linux. Initially, it was not free software, but in 1992, he changed the license and he made it free software. So at that point, the combination of the almost complete GNU system and Linux, this one other program, made a complete free operating system. And this is what made it possible for the first time to buy a PC and use it in freedom by installing a complete free operating system. A system which is basically the GNU system, but which also contains this program Linux. So if you call it GNU/Linux or GNU plus Linux, you'll give credit to the people who started the development as well as to the person who developed the last piece that finished it. Today, tens of millions of people run the GNU/Linux system, maybe more than 100 million. Unfortunately, that's still a small fraction of computer users, and even worse, most of those people still use some proprietary programs, so they have not completely attained freedom. Nearly all of the hundreds of distributions of GNU/Linux contain proprietary programs or install proprietary programs or steer users toward proprietary programs, which means that they're not entirely ethical. So on GNU.org or FSF.org, you can find the list of the few GNU/Linux distributions which are entirely free, which don't recommend that people give up their freedom. If you value freedom, you need to use one of them. But above all, if you value freedom, you need to teach other people to value freedom. Because if there are few of us and we try to fight to defend our freedom, our chances of winning are smaller. But if we teach other people to appreciate freedom also, and they join in, our chances are greater. This is why I don't participate in advocating open source. You see, open source is basically a way of talking about free software, but hushing up the issue of freedom. The people who chose to start saying open source in 1998 were the people in the free software community that didn't want to raise this question at all. Somehow it made them feel uncomfortable, or they thought it would make other people feel uncomfortable, or some of them wanted to distribute proprietary software and they didn't want their potential customers to see any reason to say no to it. So, for their various reasons, they chose to forget about freedom. They chose to construct a different discourse which never raised this issue. Well, if people develop free software for those motives, their contribution is still good. But in the long term, our future depends above all on what we value. If we value freedom, we will make an effort to gain freedom and to hold on to our freedom. If we don't know what freedom means, if we've never even heard the concept, we are not likely to make that effort. So I came to the conclusion that there was simply no use in promoting open source. It was a distraction because it failed to mention the most important point. That's why I give speeches like this talking about free software. I hope you'll join me in spreading the ideas of free software. For more information, look at GNU.org and FSF.org. We also have sister organizations, FSF Europe, which is at FSFEurope.org, FSF Latin America, which is at FSFLA.org, and FSF India, which is at GNU.org.in. Thank you very much.